Our latest audio documentary is coming to this podcast Monday, April 25th. It's on Tony Davis, one of the most legendary wrestlers to ever come out of Chicago. And growing up in Illinois, folks, everyone knew about Tony Davis, but few knew about his reality growing up on the south side of Chicago. And that's what we explore in this documentary. I can't wait for you to hear it. It's a 3-part series coming Monday, April 25th to this platform. It's called Escape from Inglewood. Be on the lookout for it. The trailer's dropping next Wednesday.
Young women want the opportunities to, not only have the choice to come here at Iowa. I think it's the greatest place to come and, represent women's wrestling in front of a community that would be behind them 1,000%,
Yeah.
But women just want opportunities, just like men.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestled, because if you wrestled, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
If I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestling Changed My Life podcast. This is your host, Ryan Warner. Our guest today is Clarissa Chun, the head coach of the University of Iowa women's wrestling team. She's also an Olympic bronze medalist and a world champion back in her competitive days. This interview was recorded at Carver Hawkeye Arena back in January. The video version is live on the Hawkeye Wrestling Club Inner Circle portal, and the audio version is what you're about to listen to. So I hope you enjoy it. Fan of the week goes to Royce Williams, a Chicago man and a listener of this show. Royce, thanks for the message on LinkedIn. I greatly appreciate it. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is your nutritional insurance policy. With one scoop of Athletic Greens in the morning, you take care of 75 vitamins, minerals, superfoods, and it tastes delicious. You mix it up, slam it down. You don't have to take vitamins for the rest of the day. Athletic Greens is now a sponsor of this podcast, so go to athleticgreens.com/WCML and get a 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Again, athleticgreens.com/WCML. You get a 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs of Athletic Greens. Check it out now. And that's it, folks. Let's get to the interview with Clarissa Chun. Beautiful. So, welcome to the podcast. And if you go back to the beginning, Hawaii, first state to sanction women's wrestling, and you were one of the first, if not the first state champion. What was your introduction into wrestling?
My introduction was when I was middle school to wrestling. My teammates from judo wrestled in high school. So we'd go and support them and watch them at dual meet, tournaments, state tournaments. And as a middle schooler, I would see random 1 or 2 girls walking around wrestling, wearing a white t-shirt underneath the singlet because it was a men's cut singlet, stuff like that. And yeah, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think oh, I want to wrestle. It was just more in support of my teammates, There was a teammate of mine, I would beat him in judo, but he would beat me in wrestling. And when I did learn wrestling, but it was, something that I felt worked well together, as far as using wrestling and judo and wrestling. And yeah, it took me a while to get into the sport.
What was the big moment that flipped the switch for you?
So I was a swimmer as well, and swimming and wrestling was in the same season in high school. And what flipped the switch was making it to states in swimming, but not even being top 8 in like the events that I like competed at, you know, maybe in the relay races, maybe, you know, but not winning it. So I'm pretty competitive. Even in swimming, when growing up, I still had the mentality, I don't care, I'm just going to out swim everyone, work harder, like swim fast, like more strokes, whatever. And then, so that turning point came my sophomore year. And I was like, you know, maybe I will give wrestling a try, because the wrestling coach has been asking, like, come out, you know, because he knew of my judo background. And for whatever reason, I was like, no, I swim, you know, and I've known this swim coach for a while, or like kind of grew up like she was my swim coach, and didn't want to leave the team, didn't want to leave swimming, you know, and try something new. But it made sense. It was like, oh, why not try it, you know, and never looked back.
Were your parents competitive people?
No, not at all. You know, like my mom was a cheerleader, dad ran some track, but not competitive at all. I have an older brother that did judo. He never wrestled. He's the reason why I kind of got into judo. He did it. I wanted to be like my brother and do it. He stuck to swimming, you know. He never got into wrestling, but sometimes I wonder how that would have gone.
So when you went to college in Missouri, did you finish there, or did you move to the OTC during that?
I moved to the OTC after my junior year, so I finished up at UCCS, University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and trained and finished up school there.
And who was your main coach there?
In Colorado Springs?
Yeah, Colorado Springs.
Terry Steiner. Yeah.
Got it.
He was the first first and only so far, you know, women's national team coach since it was announced that it was going to be an Olympic sport. Prior to that, there was a lot of coaches that coached women's wrestling on the national level, like Coach Mike DeRoe, Coach Rob Eider, Coach Joe Corso, you know, Jack Griffin, he coached at Northwestern at that time. So there was a handful of guys that were helping the women before it became an Olympic sport. So
what was your experience like when you just like getting acclimated to the OTC and living in that environment?
Elevation. And really it was the best option, you know, so you were training alongside your competitors. You know, there was a lot of scraps in the room early on, you know, and it was fun. It was intense. I remember when we first got there at the training center, and Terry's coming from coaching men's college program, not first time coaching women, you know, and we're all there like drilling, and through the drills, we're talking through the drills, like between me and my training partner, right? And Terry's like, we can't have this, you know, like this is not how it's done, you know, like just there can't be like talking during drilling. We got to get some work done, you know? So it was just the way, you know, girls were just different in that, you know, in that time, in the sense of we felt we were working. We thought we were giving each other feedback as we were drilling, you know? So, but it was very clear early on, like, we're here and we're not talking through the drills. And there are moments for that, but not after every rep kind of thing, you know?
Who were some of the girls in that early class who you were out there with?
Sarah McMahon, Taylor O'Donnell, I would say Tori Adams. She came from Missouri Valley as well. Erin Tomio, Jenny Wong, Katie Downing, a lot of great.
Some studs.
Yeah, like Patricia Miranda, right? Mm-hmm. She was a competitor of mine. Yeah.
Is it? I mean, just kind of walk us through what it's like living at the training center, because I'm sure at first it's like it's new, it's shiny, it's red, white, and blue everywhere. But then after you're there, it's kind of monotonous, maybe, because it's, you know, not many people are doing anything else in their sport. So what was your experience there?
I thought it was cool because you got to meet other athletes from other disciplines of sports, you know, and me being judo background, they had a judo program at the Olympic Training Center. So I always thought in my mind, like, oh, I'm going to find a way to do both practices, but there was no way I could, like, practices would run at the same time. But I kind of got like geeked out because I knew the judo national team coach, because I used to grow up going to his training camps because he's an Olympic medalist. And so, yeah, it was just like, oh, this is great. You know, like cafeteria food is amazing and like at your disposal, like buffet style, whatnot. And at that time, they had a gas station, and they still do on complex, but they would allow us to like get gas for a cheaper price or whatever. It was weird. And before I got there, they actually had like a barbershop on site where athletes could get their hair cut on complex, you know, and stuff like that. It was cool because they were giving you pallets of Boost. Back then it was Boost as your protein shake kind of refueled, and boxes of power bars, like those chewy, like what, you know, the very first like power bars there were. It was not like what power bars are like now kind of thing. And they would give us boxes of popcorn like every month, you know, and it was just like, wow, you know, like you're getting all these things because you're trying to attain great things as an elite athlete. So these are the things that you need to start thinking about, of how you're refueling your body between workouts or whatnot. And really, it was still at its infancy as far as understanding like nutrition and sports psychology and all that that goes into being a complete elite athlete.
And you were coaching there from 2017 until a couple months ago, right? And was there a big change from early 2000s to when you got there in 2017?
Absolutely. A lot of change.
What were some of the big areas?
I've seen a lot of change throughout the years too. Well, one, the wrestling room's completely different. I mean, not completely. It just got expanded, I should say. Like we used to have to work around all different styles, right? Greco, men's freestyle, and women's freestyle would have to share like time slots to work around, because it was like 3-4 mats, whatever, you know, like not full mats. And yeah, to 8 mats where we don't have to fight for different times and adjust. Like if we're going like 6 to 8 and we have to rush to dinner right after practice, or go, you know, at whatever times, you know, fight for certain times. So that was one change. I saw changes just through sports medicine, like that whole, they call it Team 5, like the whole team behind the team, you know, like whether it's in nutrition, sports psychology, sports medicine. I don't even know if I knew if there was even a dietitian at the training center in 2002, and now there is, and there's dietitians that travel with the team, you know, to make sure that, you know, their weight descent is proper, you know, their refueling process, like after weigh-ins or in between matches, is getting them to their optimal. So,
and now that, like you said, didn't even know you had one. Now they're traveling around the world.
Yeah,
that's crazy. What about one area I was really curious on is like sleep. Do they put a lot of focus on sleep and like not getting up at 5 a.m. and, you know, getting your rest, that kind of thing?
Early on, I didn't know the importance of sleep. I need to take that and start sleeping a little bit more right now. But they do have like a sleep specialist like that studies sleep and helps the athletes. That's a good point, because that's something that was, you know, the whole recovery piece of things I felt wasn't really talked about, you know, as far as, or like I never learned that piece, you know, of how important sleep is. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, you know, like make sure you get your 8 hours, right? And whatnot. But I mean, there's people at the training center that like fully study it and give the athletes like this sleep monitor to go like see what kind of sleep they're having and try to correlate, you know, what kind of intensity of the practice and if they're injured and whatnot, and just the whole science behind that it's beyond me, as far as like, that's why, like, so when I was an athlete, like I tracked that for myself by using a heart rate monitor. I get sleep. And this is how I learned it from my strength coach. It was like, when you wake up, check your heart rate, walk around and start getting up, and then recheck your heart rate. And then whatever, like the difference that is, it kind of tells you where your condition is, like,
really?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the science behind it all. So,
right.
But.
And so I'm just really curious about that part of it, because obviously we're going to come back and talk about your competitive career, but you start coaching there in 2017. You're back under Terry Steiner, one of your original coaches. And then at the same time, you get to start working with one of our favorite wrestlers, Sarah Hildebrandt. And, she's just awesome. What an ambassador for the sport. And, she made the Olympic team. We were down in Texas watching. So what was it like to see her make that Olympic team in Texas, just based on all the years you had put in with her?
Oh, my gosh. She's phenomenal. Like, she's so great. Like, she really is all in to be the best in the world, right? So it's easy, I would say, to work with her because, like, she's driven to another level, right? Almost so much that it's like, okay, let's pull back a little bit, right? Because there's sometimes you can go to like too far, right? As far as some things, but she's so great because she wants it that bad, and I think like she keeps working at it and working on the little things that will help her get her there. She'll get it, and that's not even saying technically, because I think she's there, as far as there's always, ways to evolve and add to and whatnot. But
her grittiness though is like, she's just so tough. What a competitor. So you've had to like say, hey, you're doing too much. We need to pull you back a little bit.
Oh my gosh. She will overdo things, on her, and I don't want to say what she does, because it's not for me to say. But she knows, like a recovery day shouldn't look like she's running for miles, like that, because it's like, it's just how she's wired, and it's so great. And I'm excited to see her do great and big things. And yeah. She's an amazing person. And I'm glad I don't get beat up by her anymore, but I also miss it at the same time.
Sure. Yeah. And she just seems like such a bright personality, when those training days can get long. And and so you're with her as she makes the Olympic team. And you were one of the Olympic coaches as well? Yeah. Got it. Is that how it works? Like the Terry and you were? Yeah. Okay. Got it. And what was, you've been to, you competed in 08 and 12 Olympics. I'm sure you've been to many others. What was this one like? This past, it's crazy, it's this past August, but it doesn't even seem real. Yeah. But, the U.S. takes home 4 medals. We had 5 ever before that. So, what was that experience like?
Like, I love Japan. So that in itself, right? Great country to host the Olympics. In unfortunate times of coronavirus, they found a way to make it happen and let the show go on, kind of thing. So that was great for like Japanese Olympic Committee and the IOC to be able to figure out a way that they don't cancel these Olympics, because that was the hardest thing for all athletes to, work through and go through. That, they were ready at, that moment. And so their experiences were different from my experiences because, they didn't get the opening ceremony, closing ceremony, or the village and whatnot, but they had the opportunity to compete for an Olympic gold medal. And I'm trying to think where I was going with this.
It just seems like when you guys were in that seating, like the area where the Team USA was, sitting, it was like the athletes, the coaches, and that's about it. Like, it seemed like a pretty intimate group. Yeah. And you guys had really grown just by the camera flashing to the stands over that 10 days together.
Yeah. And that's just, I don't know, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going somewhere, but I went down a different way and I lost it.
We
Sorry.
can go anywhere, no
man.
problem.
Yeah, no, that experience for the Olympics was a bit gutting. Like 4 medals is great. It's so awesome. That's like the most we've ever had, you know. But at the same time, it was a little gutting, you know, because Sarah's semifinals match gutted me, you know, like gutted her, you know, and so proud of her to bounce back and come back and get that medal, you know, after I know that feeling. That's tough, hard, right? Like literally had that semifinals match, right? And then even Jakara's match for bronze, you know, like that's tough, you know. I've been in both their positions in the sense of know what it's like to lose in the semifinals match of the Olympic Games and know what it's like to lose the bronze medal match in the Olympics. And for me, it's like, yeah, 4 medals is great, but I know there was so much more, you know, that they're great, you know, and still very proud of them because it doesn't, at the end of the day, they're still the people that are who they are, you know, and I love them for who they are, not what they achieve. So, and it's just their process, you know. And I told Sarah, you know, it's in a weird way, it was wrestling saying, you're not done yet, you know, and had you got that gold medal, maybe, you know, the world would have missed out a little bit more of you out there on the mat, you know. So, and
just for her to get herself mentally ready to get back for that bronze medal, I mean, that must be the biggest roller coaster of all time.
Oh, gosh.
And was it overnight or was it like a daytime 4-hour break?
So for me, it was a daytime 3-hour break. So that I couldn't recover from. So
And her?
For her, she had the next day. But it wasn't easy. It was a long night. You know, she had to get her weight down with the emotions, you know. Imagine the stress that did to her body, you know, as far as like going through all those emotions and having to like get her weight back down to reweigh in for the next day. But at the same time, glad we had that time because she made that choice that the next day is a new day. You know, we have to push this thought, emotion aside for just at least one more moment of a match so it won't rob her another like feeling or make her feel this way again, you know? So, yeah. And for me, I remember Terry saying to me when I lost semifinals match at the Olympic Games, you're still fighting for a medal, you know? And it's so true. And sometimes in those moments, it's like not the medal that I wanted, you know, not the medal that I want. But then when you're on the flip side, you also know what it is to not get that medal. So it's like, you know what? You're right. Got to get the next best thing, you know?
And when you told her you're not done, it kind of reminds me of what I had read. You were thinking going into 2008, you thought, I'm probably done after this. Win, lose, or draw, whatever. And when you lost to, is it Isho?
Yeah.
In the semis, you said, even though you were heartbroken, you're like, I know I'm not done. Why'd you feel that?
Because I felt like I was better than what I put myself out there and showed myself, you know, or in that match, right? I was like, no, I know I'm better than that. That's the worst feeling, is knowing there could have been more. Or maybe in Sarah's case, the worst thing is she felt like she just choked or stopped wrestling and just got away from her, right? Like, and I don't want to speak for her, but, you know, whatever the case is, I wanted to rewrite that wrong, what felt wrong, you know, to me, that wasn't me out there. And it's like, I want to show that I'm better than that, you know? So.
And then a couple months later, you're back in Japan. I think it was in Japan, right? Yeah. In the semis against Japan.
Yeah.
And you get the job done. I mean, that had to be just, you know, a crazy feeling knowing what you had gone through.
Yeah. You know, And I don't ever discredit like the world title at all, but I always felt like I was ready to win the Olympics, you know? And that was just my feeling. So it felt good, you know, to get that, you know, 2 months after. I think it was just fire and hunger and like in the sense that I got to make it better, you know, rather than it making it feel like a consolation prize, you know. So
did you wrestle straight through to 12 or did you take some time off in between 08 and 2012?
I took some time off. So because I thought I was going to retire in 2008, I committed to teach English in Japan. So so the World Championships were in Japan. So I kind of pushed moving to Japan back, you know, till after the Worlds. I was supposed to go right after the Olympics. And then when I knew that I was going to compete in the Worlds, okay, I'll come after the Worlds. Went to Japan, taught English for a shorter while than I, you know, agreed to do. And it was because I wasn't done yet. So, but I had to see if I could try to do both, where I teach English and train in Japan, because I thought no better place to train than with the best in the world right now, you know, and that was hard. It was hard to do both. So
you were doing like a full-time teaching job like you would here in the States, like a 7 to 3 and
it was a full day. It was like 7 to 3. They would let me out early. The other teachers would work till 5 sometimes. Just depends on the teachers. 7 to 3, and I went to college wrestling practice at 4, and then 6 o'clock, 6:30 around, I did kids practice. I helped coach that, and then go home by 9. And so it was like, it was full days, and I just felt like it wasn't the right way to do it. If I was gonna continue on to 2012, it was just too much and too exhausting. Yeah.
2 things you said there I want to hit on. One is you were doing a kids camp. I got to ask, what's it like going to like Saudi Arabia or some of these places you've done clinics for FILA? One was a refugee camp, right?
One, for United World Wrestling. They don't like saying.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. It's the dirty word. My bad. UWW.
Yeah. Oh, man, that was so...
When was that?
That was July of 2019, going to Jordan, to Amman, and then we went up to Syrian refugee camp. Oh, my gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Azraq.
Yeah,
Azraq.
I had it written down. I was looking for it.
Yeah, Azraq refugee camp, and that was just... man, you know, I just wanted to, like, take everyone with me and put them on a plane and bring them back to the U.S. That's just how I felt, just because these kids, a lot of them were born in that refugee camp. You know, a lot of them were very energetic and like just tough, man. They just, you know, survival mode. You know, I went there I brought candy and clothes and shoes, wrestling shoes, everything. And I learned early on not to just like open it and say, here, free for all, because they would fight each other. And it was like, coaches were like, no. And it was like, let us hand this out, because this, you know, like, and I didn't, you know, because I don't know what it's there. I didn't know how things were done there, their culture and what they're going through. And it was pretty eye-opening in the sense of very kind-hearted people too, you know. They like for people who are fighting for so much, you know, they had water running only certain times of the day, you know. So when the water was on, and I didn't realize this, when the water was on, they would pull me, come, you know, like, and they're like sweaty from running around and doing some wrestling drills or just playing, really. It was what it was, with some wrestling drills and stuff, trying to keep it fun and nothing technical or anything. Because the importance of this, like, just having activity for them, right? they would pull me aside and like, come, let's go to the bathroom, you know, like the water's on right now. So now's our time to like freshen up or get clean or, you know, and it was just like, yeah, like things that we take for granted that we don't even have to think about, you know, like resources that are at our fingertips, like water, you know. So
we've done a few things for Beat the Streets, and like when we leave, like, you know, our heartstrings are being tugged at, you know, and you just feel like, wow, like I'm sure that was like that times like 10. And like what always sticks out to me is just like the upbeatness of everyone despite the situation they're in. Did you see that there as well?
Absolutely. They're fearless too, you know, like upbeat and fearless, climbing things, jumping off things. I'm like, man, they would be great wrestlers. They're super athletic and fearless and like tenacious in everything they're doing, like they're just go-getters. And it's, you know, and they all had different personalities, but you saw it whenever like there were moments, you know, like they brought food out and it really was just, you know, like we, you know, want to get our hands on whatever we can.
Right. I mean, I can't even imagine wrestling in a refugee camp. I mean, that's an incredible experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's so great with United World Wrestling and their development department is that they are trying to reach out and find, you know, how to develop wrestling and give opportunities to kids, people, women, you know, all over the world, you know, that don't have wrestling and try to introduce that to them because it's at a low cost of, you know.
Low barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like in Saudi Arabia?
That was cool. The women were awesome, brilliant, smart, young woman that I had. So it was a coach's course, you know, it was coaching coaches. So these young women came in wanting to learn how to coach wrestling, even though they had no idea what wrestling is as far as like what to do, you know, like where to be, not a stance, you know.
Are women allowed to compete in sports in Saudi Arabia?
Women, yeah.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, in some sports they have like taekwondo, judo, they have some combative sports, but the thing is they have to be coached by women, you know? And so Saudi Arabia has a men's team, and they have quite a big group of guys that I saw that were wrestling in Riyadh, I was in. So these coaches came and they coached CrossFit, cycling, you know, Taekwondo, one of them. So they were curious about wrestling, you know, they're like, and they thought they were going to like wrestle 24/7 or learn about wrestling, you know, and because it was a coach's course, it was a little bit of a methodology and philosophy of coaching kind of thing. So there was like a lot of like coaching skills, and obviously taught them wrestling skills, you know, because they got to know,
yeah.
you know, very basic, like a wrestling stance, penetration step, and then had them kind of like research and look things up, help them find where they can get resources from, like whether United World Wrestling's website or like Instagram handles, whatnot,
right?
YouTube, whatnot. You know, because of the internet, there's so many information available to everyone across the world, and with the coaching skills and tools that we give them, it's like, okay, now go out and find something you see and like teach, you know, your counterparts how to do a certain technique, you know, and that they're great. They ask a lot of questions. They're smart, and they're just great energy, good people. And yeah. Then I got to hear about like their government pouring in money into developing in the sports. Like, so they are creating kind of an academy. They've created an academy so they can identify young talent and try to develop them, because the government is starting to pour money into sports because they just want to give young athletes opportunities, you know, on the Olympic level. So,
and so we talked about some places where it's grassroots, refugee camp, Saudi Arabia. You've also spent time in the motherland for women's wrestling, Japan, and I don't know if you've seen the highest level training over there. If you've been to their Olympic training center, do they not allow?
Yeah,
they
no,
do.
Yeah, we've had a really big camp. Was it March 2019, I believe? And yeah, I don't even know how many countries. It was a big camp. It was the first time they've ever really opened their doors to a big camp like that.
Right.
Yeah. So
like in men's freestyle, obviously we watch the guys from Dagestan, and you're like, man, what are they doing differently? Same with Ossetia. Japan. Fill me in on what you've seen. Just some key fundamental differences between the Japanese women and the U.S. women in terms of training and approach.
I think on the technical side, they are very detailed as far as positioning. I think they really key in on that. Like sometimes when I think we drill and we're, maybe we need to like slow it down and like key in on the finite details of the position, because sometimes when we go too fast, because, our pace is like go, 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 execute, 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 right? Sometimes when we go that fast, maybe we're not really feeling each position and we can miss or fake what we really understand, So that's one thing I think.
But they're hyper-focused on like every detail.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so.
Yeah. Like
looking from out in, having seen them, it's about very minute positions, if I'm 10 degrees this way, like what do you feel that, where should I put them down or how or whatnot, which direction do I take them or whatnot, right? Just for example.
What about the live wrestling? Do they go live as much as we do?
Yeah, I've been, and sometimes you don't really know, right? Because when you're there, they're gonna run it how they want us to perceive it, Right. I've taken development age group over to Japan where Sayori Yoshida, I blended the names. Sayori Yoshida lives in Nagoya, and she has her Sayori Cup, the first cup like tournament she had in Mie Prefecture. And this is like kind of recently I was done competing, but I was still really, really, really active. And I took a development age group. They did 52 2-minute goals.
Ooh.
It was like half on, half off though. So, but it was still a lot, right? Like, yeah. And I actually got pulled into one of like a lot of those goals because there was a kid that I taught in kindergarten there, like in Japan, that was now in high school. Wow. His name was Raya, and saw him, and it was just so happy to see him. It's been like 10 years since I seen him, give or take, and ended up wrestling with him for a few of those 2-minute goals. And then once I was in, all these other girls and guys started wrestling me, like reaching out their hands, wanting to shake, like, can we go, and I'm like, yeah, sure. This is fun, like for me, even though, and it really, that's just kind of their mentality in the sense of we want to wrestle, like,
it's all respect based.
Yeah. I felt that way, in the sense of, like if Helen were to go there, they would want to get their hands on Helen,
They know who she was?
Oh, they absolutely, they'll know who she is.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, I was removed, these are young athletes, and it's how many years? I would say it was like 6 years since I medaled at the Olympics, and give or take, longer than that, than from when I won a world medal in their country. they know, they're like,
right.
I don't know. I feel like if they didn't know, then their coach told them, hey, she's wrestling, go ask, and then maybe say who or whatever. They pay attention to that kind of stuff. But, the Japanese, they train hard too. They go hard on the conditioning, yeah, they can slow it down and be in detail, but they are doing conditioning and ropes. And we taken our development age group athletes to where Saori trains in Nagoya, and they got 2 people stacked on their backs and they have to run, like piggyback style. Yeah, one on each hip and run, like it's kind of the thought. These young athletes, that were 15, 16, 17 years old are like, no, that's not possible. I can't have 2 people on my back. Give me one. And it's like, nope. And it's like one person's holding to make sure the person doesn't fall over face first, because after one jumps on, the second person's got to jump higher onto the next person,
Wow. So they're going hard too.
Yeah.
Wow.
In a different way, right? And so sometimes it's mental, physical push at the same time, right? Like, because to think I'm going to carry 2 of you on my back, like,
right.
Like, why would I want to do that?
Right. It reminds me of the Brains brothers running up Carver with people on their back.
Yeah.
Which brings us obviously though to you're wearing the Hawkeye colors. Now you're the first women's head coach ever at the University of Iowa. Biggest moment by far in women's wrestling history. I like to study coaches, and one of the coaches I studied, Bill Walsh, the 49ers coach, he said that when he was a coach at the 49ers, he rarely slept more than 2 hours without waking up with an idea and not being able to go back to sleep. Are you already seeing some signs of that?
My gosh, day one, it was like, I told Terry Steiner, now I know why you don't sleep. Because I always felt like he slept late, woke up early. And I'm like, dude, you never sleep. Yeah. So
already.
Yeah.
What's your, so you were hired, we all watched the press conference, your start date was supposed to be February 7th, you moved it a month early. What's your focus been in the past couple months? Everyone wants to know.
Oh, building the team, whether it's the staff and the athletes at the same time, trying to get it all, but not doing it too fast, because I want to make sure I do it right, alongside with learning the rules and understanding what I can and can't do, and what's available and what I can give, or
in terms of like recruiting and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot. I could have a list of things of like who I want to call, and just even have conversations as like, where do I even begin?
Right.
Like how much do I want to start with? Like, on the team, what number is too much or not enough, and like with the staff, I already have an idea of like, being able to trust them, their values and their philosophies, and just seeing where it aligns with what I have envisioned as well. So
got a couple questions from the Hawkeye Nation I want to ask you. So first season be 2023-24. Will recruits be on campus next year training as a redshirt?
Yeah, okay. That's the plan.
So you'll have a team next fall, basically.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know how is it going to be dual meets where it's like UWW Worlds where it's 2 men's weights, 2 female weights, or like how are the dual meets going to work?
Here at Iowa?
Yeah.
Between the men and women's program?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I think it'd be sweet to do like maybe 125 through 141. And then female matches, and then I don't know. Like I was just wondering if you guys have thought about that. And
no, I think that's a little down the lines. I feel like I'm still here trying to build the base,
foundation.
Yeah, foundation of that all. I think like that's gonna come down the line, and that would be fun to kind of explore and like figure out how it could work and what would make sense to give the community like a great showing, of both programs. So
yeah, and it'll be freestyle. And do you think it's going to be part of what's the organization out that does the college nationals for women?
Well, there's WCWA is like a women's college, and there's the NC.
I was thinking of WCWA. So do you, and I probably way too down the weeds, but do you know, are those schools going to be competing as well, or?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause we don't have any other Big Ten schools or whatnot. There's two other Division I schools. There's like over 40 NAIA schools. There's over 40 NCAA Division I, II, and III schools. So I imagine, dueling, maybe Iowa Wesleyan, maybe Grandview, just kind of like surrounding areas, and maybe going out like Life University won national duels, maybe like having them up, vice versa, whatnot. That's kind of what I am thinking, because that's like where women's wrestling is right now. And then hopefully the other Big Ten schools and other Power 5 conferences start like opening their doors to women's wrestling, and then we can like have it, maybe, I don't know, that would be interesting what comes of it, right? Like how could a Penn State Iowa women's and men's dual meet look, at Carver,
We could make it so much longer, because like a duel is awesome. It's short. I mean, you could do 3 intermissions. It could be like a UFC card where there's 20 bouts. That'd be awesome. I just like how UWW does it for the World Finals, where it's like 2 Grauco, 2 free, or whatever it is. They work everyone in. Yeah, we gotta get like John Smith and Cale Sanderson. Let's go get these programs started, because it's gonna be here soon.
Yep, I think so. So I had some recruits in last night, and as we were leaving. We left out the tunnel where the visitors like locker rooms are. I wasn't with that recruits. I was like down the hall, but they come running back and they're like, "We saw Kale." I was like, "Oh gosh, oh no." And they're all decked out in Iowa, right? I was like, "Oh no, what are they going to say?" They're like, "What, and how'd it go?" And they're like, "We told them, you need to start a women's wrestling program." And I was like, "What did he say?" And they're like, he kind of like was grumpy at us. And I was like, "Oh man, maybe you threw him off guard, It was, just coming off of a very intense duel, like that's probably, he wasn't expecting you guys rushing him and giving him like grief about starting a women's wrestling program, right? So, but yeah, it's funny because they're
fans.
Yeah, they're fans, and they want it too, right? These young women want the opportunities to, not only have the choice to come here at Iowa. I think it's the greatest place to come and, represent women's wrestling in front of a community that would be behind them 1,000%,
Yeah.
But women just want opportunities, just like men.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. And last thing I'll say is I know you went to the Iowa high school tournament last week. Was it? Yeah. Which, I mean, you look at, top high schools for women's wrestling, California's been dominant. Illinois is tough. Iowa's on the upswing, and they had a pretty big turnout. I just want to wind down with this 30 seconds on what was your take on going to the Iowa women's high school tournament?
Just pure excitement and joy, right? Just from not just the athletes, but the coaches that coach them. There are male coaches in their corner, like jumping up and down and just very into it and passionate about these women getting to do what they're doing and being able to showcase that, and the energy behind it, their teams and whatnot. So, big things to come for the future of women's wrestling.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Wrestling Changed My Life. This episode was brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a food supplement that you take a scoop of it, add it to a glass of water, mix it up, and with that, you have your daily supply of minerals, vitamins, your superfoods covered. So it saves me the hassle of taking a bunch of vitamins, and it tastes delicious. And now that they're a sponsor of this podcast, you can get a 1-year supply of vitamin D drops along with 5 free travel packs if you go to athleticgreens.com/WCML. That's athleticgreens.com/WCML. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Wrestling Changed My Life.